got me choked up with that story. My goodness.
Well, your daughter's here today, Serena. She's going to come out later.
She's right there, yes.
Where are you, Serena? Oh, hi, honey. Good to see you. Yep. It'll be great. It'll be great to hear from her about you being her father. Talk about excuses.
It's so interesting what you were talking about. Your father was watching back there, and you think about other people, you know, that we have something bigger in our lives that we're all connected to. There is a source of some kind that is moving the pieces around, as you said. My own father walked out on our family when I was just a little boy. My mom had 3 little boys by the time she was only 22 years old, all under the age of 4, and he just disappeared and he left. And I grew up hating this man. I mean, I had so much anger toward him, and he married 5 additional women, and he died of cirrhosis of the liver. He was an alcoholic and so on. But it's interesting, many years later, when I kept trying to find him, and I used to be so angry at him, and I'd wake up every morning and I'd be just sweating, and I'd have dreams about him and fighting him and all this kind of thing. And it was 1974, I found out that he had been dead 10 years. And I didn't even know it. And through a series of the most mysterious kinds of things, I rented a car. I found out that he was buried in Biloxi, Mississippi. The car that I rented didn't have a seatbelt on it, so I reached in and there was a little card inside the seatbelt. And it said, Candlelight Inn, Biloxi, Mississippi. And I was heading down to Biloxi where I was going. I put the card in my pocket and I drove down to Biloxi from Columbus, Mississippi, where I was doing a little bit of work. And I arrived at the outskirts of the city. And I went to find out where my father was buried. There were 3 cemeteries in Biloxi. So I called the first one, there was no answer. I called the second one, that was busy. The third one was this tiny little listing. And I called, and this man came on after a long time. And I said, my father's name was Melvin Lyle Dyer. He died in 1964, 10 years ago. I just wanted to find my father. He went away for the longest time. And he said, yes, he said, your father's buried here. And it was like the end of a dream for me. And I said, well, how do I get to the cemetery? And he said, your father isn't really buried in a cemetery. He's buried on the grounds of the Candlelight Inn. And I reached into this cart that was in the rental car that I had rented. And on the back of it, there was a map on how to get there. And I went to my father's grave, and I stood there for 3 hours. It was the 24th of August, it was 1964. And what I did in those 3 hours is I was angry at him, I stomped on him, I had other things I wanted to do on his grave. And finally, the last few minutes when I was there, something came over me, and I said, from this moment on, I send you love, and I forgive you for everything that you've done. And when I walked away from there, it was like everything in my life changed. I was overweight at the time. I was drinking at the time. I was in a very bad relationship. My writing wasn't doing the things that I wanted it to do.
Was it the resentment? But what do you think happened in that moment?
Forgiveness, Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. And I felt like my whole life totally turned around when I got rid of the anger and the resentment and the hatred. When you carry that stuff around,
it's exhausting.
Yeah, there's a Chinese proverb that says if you're going to pursue revenge, you'd better dig 2 graves, you know, because it's going to kill you.
Yeah, you
and so my
yourself.
father, the person who walked out on me when I was just an infant and walked out on my mother and forced my mother to put her children into foster homes and so on, he was perhaps the most influential person in my life, because it was through the act of forgiveness that my whole career took off. I wrote Erroneous Zones, and 14 days after that, it became a worldwide bestseller, and everything in my life changed. I stopped drinking, I got myself back into shape, I started attracting the right people into my life. Everything changed just through the act of forgiveness. So your father had one impact, and my father, whom I've never even met, had another.
Yeah, I think when we take a moment to take a deep breath and say there must be a reason. Like there must be a reason for your father to become who he was.
Yeah,
who knows what happened to him.
Yeah. And I still, you know, despite, you know, I say to my mother, you know, I said, have you forgiven him? She said, look, you weren't married to the bastard, I was.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back.